The previous video showed us how to pin our fabric, and now we're going to talk about sewing fabric and seam allowance. As you can see on the throat plate of this machine, we have distances marked from the needle out, and a lot of the machines will have this. I'm just going to try to go in a bit closer. So these are your seam allowance guides, and those are the marks that you should follow. So for most seam allowances for dressmaking would be 1.5 centimeters, and for if you're doing quilting it's a quarter of an inch, so about 5 to 6 millimeters is standard for that, and that's just to reduce the bulk of any seams when you're quilting, as there are normally lots of short seams put together. So seam allowances are the distance from the raw edge of the fabric to the needle. And if you sew, especially if you're dressmaking with the wrong seam allowance, you'll find that the garment will either be too big or too small. So it is important to check for your patterns what the seam allowance for that project is going to be. And so we're going to choose the 5/8 of an inch or a 1.5 centimeters, which would be for dressmaking. So we have got that measurement here. We lower the presser foot. Now, as I said in the previous video, we don't want to be going over pins. So we will take the pins out as we get close to them. It's quite handy to have a magnetic pin cushion which is close to your machine, so that as you take the pins out you can put them straight on there. So we will go in our hand placement, which, as we covered in a previous video, is in a triangle shape. We've lowered the presser foot already, and we're just going to place our foot on the foot pedal and just so following that 1.5 centimeter or 5/8 of an inch mark. Before we get to the pin, we take it out and place it in the pin cushion. As said earlier, if you sew over pins, then it can break the needle and it can also blunt the needle. We don't want that happening. So again, we're going slowly down to the next pin. Take the pin out. There's no need to raise the presser foot to take the pins out. We're still following that 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch line from the raw edge of the machine. Take out the next pin. There we are. We've nearly finished this seam now. Just going to get to the end. There, we have just sewn the seam. Just going to cut the thread. So that is our 1.5 centimeter seam, following the seam allowance guide on the machine, which is we've done 1.5 centimeters, so that's the distance between the needle and the raw edge of the fabric.